The central issue has been one of freedom, and you are deftly sidestepping the reality that in the Iranian domestic political context, there has been repression, there has been house arrest, or worse, for those who are opposition voices. And the reality is the Iranian government is closer to the government of Gadhafi when it comes to civil rights than it is to the notion of tolerant democracy that I think you and I would hope, could agree on.
Well, no, I don't think that liberal democracy in the United States is as free as you say, because I know of people, Muslims, who are under a great deal of pressure coming from the FBI, and it's not very easy to be a Muslim in the United States, believe me. But with regards to Iran and Gadhafi, no, definitely there's a great gap. And if you look at Iranian newspapers, and if you read Iranian news and websites in the country, you'll see that there's a huge amount of diversity. There's a great deal of difference between, for example, what the head of parliament in Iran says and believes and what the Iranian president says and believes. And you see that the reformist faction in parliament exists. And by the way, they've recently condemned Mr. Mousavi, the reformist. And then among the principalists, the majority faction in parliament, you see different factions, arguing against one another. So you do have checks and balances in this country. I think that the problem really is that in the United States, Iran is caricatured to a great degree. I'm not saying that Iran is a utopia, and neither is the United States, and neither is any other country.
Professor, utopia.
But the fact remains is that Iran is not what Americans are usually told.
Look, utopia is not the standard we judge others by, nor ourselves for that matter. But the reality is there's no freedom of speech, no freedom to congregate, to assemble, to protest in Iran, and those are basic freedoms that the people from Libya to Egypt are protesting and revolting to acquire, and that is what is so remarkable about what we're seeing. But let me switch gears for a second, since you raised the issue of foreign policy.
Well, why don't you have some of the speeches? Why don't you have some of the speeches made by parliamentarians in Iran translated? Some of the websites in Iran that speak about the Iranian president, about his policies, and attack him severely. Why don't you have them translated, and then you'll see that, no, there's a great deal of openness in the country.
We do,
yes.
And what I remember recently is that both Mousavi and Karoubi, the chant in the parliament was for them to be killed because they were leading protests against Ahmadinejad. So, again, let's not get sidetracked by that. I have a totally separate type of question for you.
No, that's... chanting a few people chanting slogans, that is symbolic. That has nothing to do with actually killing anyone. I think that the fact is that Mr. Mousavi and Mr. Karoubi are seen by the vast majority of people to have gone way too far, to have caused riots, to have effectively accepted the backing of the United States, terrorist organizations like the Mujahideen Khalq, monarchists. And this is just something that in Iran is unacceptable.